Anthony with the pump fake and one dribble inside to the long two, and he makes it. That's been his game his whole career. But look at him smiling. We go, my bad. The long two.
Welcome to another episode of The Long Two. I am Pete Rogers. He is Natty Wallach. And we're a Camillus Anthony podcast that occasionally talk fantasy basketball. Natty, we are recording this mere hour away from actual new 2021 NBA basketball being played. Obviously, as people are listening to this show, Tuesday's games will already have occurred, but we are sitting on the doorstep of the NBA season. How are you feeling at this pinnacle moment?
It feels weird, but I'm excited.
I'm so excited.
Basketball just ended. The whole thing has been a blur, but we're going to have a fingers crossed real season. And it's going to be strange. This is going to be such a strange year, just like the football season was, I think, and baseball. And I don't really know what to expect.
I'm so excited for this timeline of the NBA. The fact that it starts just as football is ending just seems perfect to me. I'm just so excited for like the NBA season to carry me into 2021 and be like the seemingly majority of 2021. That just makes so much sense to me. And I wouldn't be surprised if the league tries to do something like this moving forward in future years, where it's like, why have the season compete with football at all? Like, why not just have it, because football is such a rigid September to, January with a game in February. Like, why not have it basketball start in December and go until like June?
I think a lot of that has to do with tradition.
Sure.
Like basketball used to start on Halloween. Now it starts earlier than that. COVID has changed the landscape, so anything's possible. Silver's talking about expansion. We have
if they don't bring
games.
back the Sonics, I'm gonna hurt some people.
Oh, Seattle is the number. That would be the first expansion team.
It has to be.
I don't think anyone disagrees with that. They have the money. There's a stadium,
Right.
and the NBA owes it to them. And there's a built-in fan base there.
Yeah.
So, but league expansion is tricky because depending on how you let people buy the teams, it just turns into sort of a long-term loan from the NBA to the new owners. And that doesn't really make a lot of financial sense for people that need money now. So, or who may need money now. So it's not like a strict cash grab. But we've talked about it before. There just seem to be too many good players that aren't getting PT. So, there's only like a handful of teams that are really, truly bad this year, and the talent has diffused throughout the league. It's really exciting.
Yeah, no, this is a year. And I know you said this when we were talking before we hit record. This is a year that I feel like there's so much unpredictability to it, and there's so many different narratives that you could go down and so many different teams that you could hit your wagon to. And you were saying you had a really hard time figuring out who was going to make the playoffs, who's in your who's your top 8 seed on the East or the West. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to go through our Eastern Conference, Western Conference predictions for the playoffs, for who we think is going to be in contention, and then also some end of the year awards: MVP, Rookie of the Year, Most Improved, and then maybe we pick our champion. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with playoff seeding, or do you want to start with end of the year awards?
Let's go with playoff seeding.
Why not?
Let's start in the East.
All right. You go from 8. Give us your 8, 7, and then we'll talk, and then 6-5 talk, 4-3 talk, 2-1 talk. And I will make my list on the fly and make it as contrarian to yours as possible.
Okay. And let's remember there are play-in games again. So there are really 10 teams, but I structured it as 1 through 8 and then the 2 on the bubble and then teams that I would be surprised. So in the East, I'll give you the ones I'd be surprised. Well, or that I just don't feel like they could make it. Cavs, Pistons, Knicks. I think that's pretty easy to predict. the Magic are missing their best player, and while they still have good players and an exciting young point guard, now they have two exciting young point guards, excuse me. I just sort of feel like this is a year where they can easily not win and maybe lean into it. So I don't
totally
have
agree with that.
Orlando making it. And then I do think that the Hornets are maybe another year away. I think there are other young
Interesting.
teams that are a little bit more experienced and are going to be, I mean, there's only 72 games this year, so I think it's going to be tough, even though I like Charlotte a lot. And I think that Hayward there is really good for the young kids. I just don't think that they'll do well enough. And then I'll just give you my 9. I don't think Atlanta or Chicago is in the top 8. Atlanta still doesn't, their defense, I still don't know if it exists. And even if it does, is Ice Trace such a negative on that end that it ends up hurting them anyway? And then Chicago, it's a new coach. Their team might not work really. And I just sort of like the other teams more. So my 8 and 7, I went back.
Wait. I want to talk about those. Yeah, because I agree with you. I think I would agree that Cavs, Pistons, Knicks solidly not in playoff contention,
and don't want to be.
Right. They don't want to be. In fact, if the Pistons were to get too close, they would trade Blake Griffin in a heartbeat.
And I think ditto with the Cavs and Kevin Love and Drummond.
Yes. Well, they've tried to trade Kevin Love for like 10 years.
Well, now his contract will be
now his contract is reasonable.
Onerous.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, we keep seeing people, big contracts get traded every year.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Don't you love the fact that like everyone has always been like, Kevin Love, you can't trade him because of that contract. And yet Russell Westbrook has changed like 4 different teams. Chris Paul's been traded 5 times. Like clearly it's, yes, the Love's contract is not great, but also clearly not a lot of teams want Kevin Love. I think I like the Hornets, Hawks, Bulls being in that like muddling pool of the 2 teams who will make the play in. I think the Bulls,
that's better to say. They're in the same tier for sure.
I think the Bulls are the best of those 3, just from my personal feelings. But I could see like if all of the pieces for the Hawks click, that defense is still going to just be god awful, but holy shit, that offense is going to be really hard to stop. So they could just, score basically, average whatever 120 a game in order to get into the playoffs. But I like those 3 as like the kind of teams who are fringe playoff teams who certainly have made steps in order to try to make the playoffs. Whereas like the Cavs, Pistons, Knicks, and Magic really haven't made steps to try to make the playoffs.
They're just a few years away. I mean, obviously those teams would like to make the playoffs, but by forcing it, you end up sacrificing your future. So the Cavs, in 3 years, they'll have a completely new front court, and their exciting young wing, Isaac Okoro, who might be the best defensive rookie, will be, maturing into the beginning of his prime. Hopefully the backcourt has gotten better. And the Pistons, if Blake's healthy this year, then sure, why not make the playoffs as a 7th or 8th seed or one of the play-in games? But they're obviously going for youth, and they want to try to tend to that youth correctly, which is why they got Mason Plumlee and Jeremy Grant. But
all right,
they don't need to make.
Give me your 8 and 7.
Okay. I went back and forth. I think my 8 is the Pacers and my 7 is Washington.
Okay, I like that. I definitely would have Washington above the Pacers. So if you're going to have that, then yes.
Why? I'm curious.
Why do I definitely like Washington more than the Pacers?
Yeah, because I kept going back and forth on them.
Probably because I have just an underlying distrust in the Pacers, and I just don't believe that they're as good as their record shows.
That team might not fit either with Sabonis and Turner.
I think that's the feeling that I have with the Pacers, where it's like I just don't know what they are, and I don't think they know what they are. Like you have Victor Oladipo, who is the star but isn't the star. Michael Brogdon is great but isn't a star, and then you don't know what that backcourt or the front court is. I just feel like they're a team of very talented players who we've seen be successful. They won 45 games last year, but I don't know what this team is. Whereas with the Wizards, I can see what the Wizards are. The Wizards are Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal being this offense, and then you're having young pieces there around them to help them. I am really big on Thomas Bryant. I think Thomas Bryant is going to be a really I said in ESPN leagues he's under 50% rostered, and that should not be true. You should be adding Thomas Bryant because I just think that he is going to be a really vital part of this offense, given what Westbrook's driving kicks, picks and rolls, that whole 9 yards. So I in my head, I have a much clearer vision of what the Wizards are, and right from with having no sense of how these teams play, I will trust that more than like what this mess of the Pacers team is. But would I be surprised if the Pacers finished like a top 5 or 6 seed? No, not at all.
I think if the Pacers, like if TJ Warren is bubble Warren.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
Like if he actually has taken a gigantic step and is now one of the better players in the league, then I do think that dictates what the Pacers do. If all of a sudden they have, an elite wing to pair with Brogdon and Depot, then I think that's pretty attractive for all 3 of those players. Like if they're not simpatico, if they're not on the same page, then yeah, I agree. It's just a mess because they all will have different agendas. The front court, like it hasn't seemed to work, but they have a new coach, and shit, man, Philly with Simmons and Embiid hasn't seemed to work all the time, but they have a new coach. So things can change. If Warren is really, really good, then I think that's such a positive for them that it could help buoy them. But as it is, I just don't trust them as much as I trust the top 6.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I'll say for Warren is that he almost averaged 20 a game last year as it was. And so you're not going to get a 30 point he's not going to magically add 10 points a game to his game like he did in the bubble. So 3 points a game, is that such a difference that it's going to take this team further than we would expect? Maybe that's what it's just, maybe it's just the solidifying of like, okay, here is our alpha. And that's all that this team needs to kind of like let the pieces fall, because that was Oladipo. Then Oladipo was injured, and then he kind of came back and was kind of like iffy. And then TJ, I just think that they need to figure out like what is their primary, who is their secondary, and let the pieces fall as they will, and who that is going to be.
I also feel like it's sort of tough these days for your 2 guard to be the focus. Like it's easier geometrically if you're off. Like if Warren becomes the number 1, the alpha, then his gravity will end up helping the rest of the team in ways that is more beneficial, I think, than if Depot is the alpha. Yes. Even though Depot, they could both end up averaging 24 points per game. Like we've seen them do it before in different situations. Brogdon is best as a complementary player, and that's why Milwaukee never should have gotten rid of him.
Yeah, it was a stupid move.
Like Brogdon will be solid no matter what team he's on. Like he's one of those players. That's why he's so useful. And the more pressure you can take off of the front court, I think, the better. So if your perimeter players, if Warren, Depot, and Brogdon are all good, then I think this team's ceiling gets raised.
Yes, I agree with that. All right, give me your 6 and 5.
Okay. I went Raptors 6, even though I hate myself for it, and Nets 5.
Nets, that interesting. Okay, so the Raptors, I think we are getting to one of the things that you were talking about. We're like, and I tried this real briefly before we popped on, but like it is when you're talking Nets, Heat, Sixers, Celtics, Raptors, Bucks. God, that is a really tough, 6 teams to figure out how they're all going to mesh. I am surprised. I can understand where you have the Raptors. Personally, I think I would have the Sixers 6 and the Raptors 5.
Sure.
Just because I still don't really trust what the Sixers are. I'm surprised that you have the Nets at 5.
The reason I have both of these teams in particular outside of the top 4 is that I think that both teams don't care about their regular season record or seeding as much as
Also
some of the
totally
other
true.
teams.
That is a very good point.
Like Kevin Durant doesn't fucking care what seed he is.
Right.
And the Raptors don't give they're the most solid team in the NBA in terms of experience, consistency. I am very high on them in the playoffs. I'm extremely high on them in the playoffs, especially because I think that they could be due for another big trade. But what do they care about the number 1 seed? What do the Nets care about the number 1 seed? What matters is the first and second rounds. And I don't think that anyone in the NBA thinks that the first round is going to be a cakewalk this year because there are so many solid to good teams. So while I don't think that the Lakers would lose to an 8 seed, I do think that those series won't be sweeps. Like they'll be more competitive than usual. So, the Nets and the Raptors aren't going to try to pick their opponent. They're going to win enough to be in the playoffs. And I feel like those are easy spots. The other teams above them want the seeding more, I think.
Interesting. I like your premise. Not a worry, but just my thought is that the Nets might just be too good to take their foot off the gas. Like even when they're trying not to try, they still just win.
But how often are they actually going? We don't know what Durant and Kyrie's load management will look like, and the team will still be good even when they're not playing.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Totally. But Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie are not the same types of players. Like they'll do well,
obviously.
But Durant is one of the best NBA players of all time. He's possibly the most natural scorer ever. And Kyrie is elite. So I just don't feel like they give a shit, like they've been there and back.
Yeah.
So
I think the only thing I would say is I think the Sixers finish 6 again and Raptors 5 and Nets 4. Funny. I like your reasoning behind the Raptors and Nets, but I still have a hard time believing that the Raptors would let themselves fall to a 6, but maybe would they want to be? I mean, if they were the 5 seed, then your first round is Raptors Nets, which would be incredible. Anyways, okay. Give me your 4 and 3.
Okay. My 4 is the Miami Heat.
Okay.
And my 3...
you have way too much confidence in the Sixers. Fuck you, Natty.
I'm very high on them. My 3 is the Boston Celtics.
Fuck you.
I know. I know.
Good. This means what? We're going to get a delightful Celtics Raptors in the first round. You're such an asshole.
So the Heat, much like the Nets, they're too good to not win, but Jimmy Buckets and the Heat, culture that we can't stop talking about, and Bam and all the young guys,
right.
they don't take games off. Like I'm hoping that they will rest Jimmy sometimes, but for the most part, I think they're going to play balls to the wall and try to get the number 1 seed and remind everyone that they were just in the fucking finals and no one's talking about them. Like no one's talking about them outside of the context of Harden trades. And as soon as Miami announced we're not going to do that, like you forgot about them. No one cares about any of their moves. Like it's a strangely quiet finals team.
Yeah. And for that reason though, I feel like this is going to be, Jimmy's going to use this as motivation as a future, like FU. Like he already was an FU last year. He's going to be an FU again this year. And so I don't see, I would say, and I'm going to predict who your 2 and 1 is. So you have Sixers 2 and Bucks at 1.
I do.
Yeah. See, I think I would say Pacers, Washington, if we're going 8 up, Pacers, Washington. I'll give a little bit of love to the Sixers. Pacers, Washington, Raptors, Sixers, Celtics, Nets, Heat, Bucks. I just think
Okay.
I think the Heat are going to go balls to the wall. All like that's just Jimmy buckets to a T, and maybe they even
it's the team in
surpass
general. Totally
right. Maybe they surpass the Bucks because I do think that Bam Adebayo is a Giannis stopper.
Sure. They
And
could
so,
have the
and
number 1 seed real easy. You can see
Right.
that happening. Yeah.
right. I think the Nets are sorry. I already talked about the Nets and why I just think that they're too good to even if they try to take things off to still fall. The Celtics, I think, are going to be you're going to have figuring out at the start of the season what they are without Kemba, and really the pressure is going to be on these stars or the young guys. And yes, that was true last year. I think it's still this. I feel like the Celtics are going to be a team that use the whole regular season to kind of figure out what they are and make. I think I think they are the team in the East that's going to make a move. I know you like the Raptors to do that, and the Raptors have like made that their MO, but I do think that that the Celtics are going to do that. And then come playoff time, Brad's going to be like, okay, I have these like 3 lineups that are just going to, and we're going to roll them out and we're going to just live or die by them through the playoffs. So I think that the Celtics could be outside of the top 4. I think that's where I had them, or maybe I have them just at 4 in terms of the seeding this year.
I mean, they don't have Kemba to start the season, and they don't have Gordon Hayward anymore. So
Right.
I don't think that they got better, even though I like their rookie a lot, and I think he'll do real well on that team. I just don't think that if they improved, it's addition by subtraction. So while I believe in them and think that they are definitely a team that should compete to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, without a trade, I don't think that team is as good as Philadelphia or as good as Milwaukee. They're still incredibly good. And with Miami, like, I could sort of see them getting any of the top 5 seeds. Also, like I said before, there's only 72 games this season. So all of these seeds could be separated by 1 game or tiebreakers.
Totally.
There's like there could be the top 6 and then a drop off of 3 or 4 games. It might be really, really crowded. And in that case, some of the teams are going to say, well, how hard are we going to go for this? Like, we know we're in the playoffs. Do we really need the number 1 seed? And we don't really know what like home court advantage will be like this year. Toronto's not playing in Toronto.
Yeah,
so
that's huge.
Fucking strange. So it came down to, like, who do you really trust? I think that the Sixers, constructed like the team that almost beat the Raptors 2 years ago, which is what they have now, is an incredibly potent force. I think, to jump ahead, I think Embiid's going to get Defensive Player of the Year this year. I don't think they make the Harden trade because over the first month, I think they see like how good this team can actually be, and Simmons is more valuable long-term.
Yep.
Especially if he can make even like 1 3 a game. If he makes even 1, it'll change everything. And all the Philly fans will be like, we fucking told you so.
We were right.
And then Milwaukee, Giannis forever. He's 25, 26. Like, he could go up another level this year. Having Drew there is a really big deal. Drew Holiday. That team, I don't know if they got better or worse, really. All I care about is Giannis, and I think that there's no reason to believe that the trajectory he's been on will alter. Like, he's not just going to plateau.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. Shall we move on to the West?
Sure, but I have a question for you first.
Hit me.
Do you think that any team in the NBA will win 60 games this year? So they'd, in a 72 game sketch, like, that would be incredibly impressive.
I don't think so, because I don't know what team is so good that they would like. I think what you're saying is a really good point. Where in the fact that it is a shortened season though, and so maybe teams are less
shit teams in the East. Like, it's not going to happen in the West.
Right.
But
no. It's gonna. I think the only team that would make sense to me, maybe I'm undervaluing the Bucks. Maybe I have it in my head that I'm forgetting just how effing dominant this team can be.
And Bud's a really good,
Bud is a
regular season coach.
Regular season
I mean,
coach.
I think like the most you can realistically look for is like between 50 and 55 because
Yes.
players will be taking games or teams will be resting players. I shouldn't say that they're taking games off.
Right.
So, that could add like 5 losses to every team's cards.
I think the narrative comes down to the Nets being just like, fuck player management. We're riding. KD is fully healthy. KD is like, I'm coming for the MVP. Like, I'm going to just show you all that I haven't lost a step and I am the best player in the NBA, since that was where he was before he tore his Achilles.
Sure.
Like, and he's just going to be like, no, I'm not resting. Like, I'm going to show you everyone that I am back to where I was. Don't doubt me. And I'm going to go carry the Nets to 60-12 or whatever.
There's a lot of there's been so much rest. This is like when LeBron 2 years ago had his first big injury.
Yes.
And we were talking in the offseason. We were like, you guys don't understand. LeBron James has been more rested coming into this season than he has been since he started playing basketball. There's no fucking way he won't do well. Right. And I think that Durant under Steve Nash, I don't think that they'll eschew or avoid player rest and load management, but I think they'll be smart about it. And, when KD's in a rhythm, I think they'll try to keep him going. And then, if he has one bad game, it's like, okay, sure, maybe you should take the next 2 games off.
Yeah.
But just try to, do like respond to your body. Not Nash is always talking about like, listen to your body. My concern is D'Antoni's influence and just running people into the fucking ground. But I don't want to think about that.
All right. Before we move on to the West, let's take a quick ad break.
Yeah. So let's move to the West. Let's only team in the West that I think everyone sort of agrees is not going to be a playoff team and doesn't want to be a playoff team is the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I have them as 15th.
Yes, I agree with that.
The other 4 teams, thank you, that I have out of the playoffs are Minnesota, New Orleans, Sacramento, and Memphis. I like Memphis a lot.
Timberwolves, say their names, man, Natty.
Sure.
Timberwolves, Pelicans, Spurs, and Grizzlies.
Nope. Instead of Spurs, it's the Kings. It's Sacramento. And then Grizzlies at 11.
San Antonio. And
they're
Pelicans.
Both S teams, sure.
So you think, okay.
The thing all those teams have in common is youth, and the West is so stacked this year that I think the youth will run at the beginning, but then they'll start losing games.
The only place where I'm coming up against you is Pelicans. Is I had Pelicans in the play-in and the Spurs out of the playoffs.
Okay. I mean, that's totally fair. I have Spurs at 10. If they trade LaMarcus or DeMar DeRozan, then they would probably fall out. But I'm going to put them there out of respect.
Sure.
So they get the 10th spot for me.
That's fair. I would say Pelicans and Spurs or the Pelicans feel to me like the Hornets in the East.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Totally can make the play-in, and they totally could not.
It's a young team, and we don't know which version of Lonzo we're getting, and we don't actually know like how consistent Zion can be. We hope, he's a superstar, but we haven't really seen that yet over like 20 games, I have big hopes for Brandon Ingram this year, but there's just because they're a Stan Van Gundy coach team doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden going to be like an elite defense. So even though they have good defenders on their team in Steven Adams and Lonzo, I think there's a lot of question marks, and I think that they could make a trade too. Like, I don't think JJ Redick is going to be on this team at the end of the season. I think they're going to jettison some players.
Yeah. Are they going to trade him just as they're about to make the playoffs so that JJ for the second year in a row doesn't go to the playoffs?
Well,
Just a real
everybody needs perimeter shooting when the playoffs
Everyone
come
does.
around. So
Yep.
it's like, you could see him on nearly any team, really.
Oh,
like
my
even
God,
going
yeah.
back to Philadelphia.
And the fact that, I mean, the Bucks letting Brogdon leave was bad.
Yeah.
The Sixers, why would you let your best 3-point shooter, which is like what you desperately need in that offense?
And they just the entire team roster last year was a mistake. And they, Daryl Morey came in and changed all of it right away. So I have Ja as my most improved. I think he's just going to be stellar this year, just a burning star. But I don't think that the rest of the team will take that step with him.
Okay.
So that's why I have them out, even though I think they'll be pretty solid. The Kings are going to king. I mean,
yeah, I agree with you on Memphis. So you have Spurs then as one of your play-ins. Who's your other play-in?
It's the Warriors.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Tell me
have them
more.
At 9.
Because I have the Mavericks here, but you tell me more
about
the Warriors.
I like that a lot too. I was sort of thinking down on the Mavs earlier, but I have the Warriors there because I think they're one of these teams that doesn't really care about seeding so long as they make it in. But the play-in game is different. But they're like an injury away from not being competitive. And it's not just Curry and it's not just Draymond. Like if they lost Wiggins, that would be a huge hit. And that's really saying something because
not a good thing when you're relying on. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Andrew Wiggins was, I think, 19th in points last year. He's much better than most of the players in the NBA, but it's just him and Oubre. They can't be your second best players. They just can't be. And
the Klay Thompson injury is just devastating.
Yeah. I mean, it will take Steph having an MVP year, I think, to really be high in the playoff seeding. And while I do think that he could have an MVP year and he should be in the discussion in the top 5, I also feel like he doesn't need to prove anything. And if he doesn't want to, he doesn't need to. So long as they make the playoffs, then things will be okay. And, they can make, trade. Like the fact that they have Wiggins' contract means that they can get a big contract back. So, that could even be a Harden team.
That wouldn't be, not against that. Yes, I think you are totally right about the Warriors. I had them as my 8th seed, but I would definitely bump them into the play-in just because of what you said, where it's like, man, particularly if Steph ever misses games in a shortened season, they're just that's game set match, not without having Klay, and Draymond's not even starting for them tonight. Right. So it's like they're already off to a not to a great start.
So there's just a lot of uncertainty there, but I still have confidence in them. I do feel like Steph Curry is just like Harden and Giannis and LeBron. He's a guy who, if he's on your team, you should be able to make the playoffs.
Yes. Yep. I totally agree. All right, give us your 8 and 7 for the West.
Okay, 8. I have the Phoenix Suns.
Yes, baby. Yes, you motherfucking do.
Yeah, I feel like they're ready, and having point guard there is going to provide a focus that they haven't had yet. And while that team isn't as stacked with talent as the other Western teams above them, it's still really good. DeAndre Ayton's still really good. He's not Luka good, and he's going to have to wear that for his whole career, but he's still really good. Devin Booker is fucking fire. He could have a transcendent year. I think he could be a black horse MVP. If the mesh of him and CP3 really works out. And then I have Dallas at 7.
Yeah, that's where I have him too. Yes.
And Dallas is another team where it's like you're one injury away. And when is Porzingis coming back? Like they could be if they didn't have Luka, that team would be shit.
Oh, that team would be hot fucking garbage. Oh, absolutely. I mean, honestly, it took a lot of tempering of expectation to put the Suns as the 8 seed, because I was just like, let's fucking ride. This team was undefeated in the bubble. They've
Yeah.
added Chris
Yeah.
Paul. Like, let's fucking go and let's just like make this team a 6 seed. I have so many. It's so funny for the West, because the West is loaded with so many good teams, but there are a few of them who I just perennially, I guess this is true for both conferences. There are good NBA teams who I perennially are just like, no, I don't believe that you're good. And two in the West are the Jazz and then this Rockets team. Both of them are, I'm just like, no, I'm sorry. Like, you guys, yes, you will probably both finish like in the top 5 seeds in the West, but it's just like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I want the Suns. I want the Jazz to be, you can sneak in as the 8th seed and the Suns are going as the 5 seed. But, ultimately that won't happen because the Jazz are a very good team.
The Suns, however, are one of the rare teams that do give a shit about seeding. They want to make the playoffs. They almost need to make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs with Chris Paul, that's a disaster. They have to make the playoffs to show Devin Booker that they can, that they are competent in what they are doing. So they could be shooting for a number 1 seed. There is a world where they're a top 3 seed in the West, but that'll probably be because the other teams couldn't care less. I think there's one other team that is going to care a lot. But the Suns.
Can I guess who it is? Can I guess who it is?
Show. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it Portland?
It sure fucking is.
Yes, it fucking is.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying, man. This is what I'm saying. It's just the Jazz, the Rockets, the Nuggets. I enjoy the Nuggets, but like the Clippers and the Lakers, these teams don't excite me. And they don't even excite themselves. Like, they are going to just be like, we're gonna make the playoffs. We don't care about seeding. Blah blah blah. I want the motherfucking Suns and the motherfucking Trailblazers. And give me Luka with a healthy Porzingis, but even the Mavericks, I'm kind of lukewarm on. This Luka warm on, nailed it.
Nice job.
The Suns and Blazers, I'm just like, yes, carry me to heaven and back. Just like, decide that this is your year in a shortened season, in a year where the Lakers are coming off of like 60 days rest and all of this kind of shit. The Rockets are just kind of in turmoil, whatever is going, and just be like, no, screw all kind of excuses. We are going to play all 70 games, balls to the wall, and we are going to try to like stake our claim in a top Western team. Like, man, your question about the East, what if Dame Lillard just hits a level we can't even fathom,
right?
And the Trailblazers are the team that goes 60-12. Like, God, wouldn't that be glorious?
Let me submit this to you as well, Peter.
Yes, I will take it.
Giannis has won the MVP the past 2 years. It's highly unlikely he will win it again. We said last year that before the season started last year that it was going to be LeBron's last best chance to win MVP because Golden State was injured and everything was wide open, and he almost did, but they gave it to Giannis instead. Giannis won't win the MVP this year. LeBron's not going to win it because they are going to take games off, and he just couldn't care less anymore. Someone knew they're not going to give it to Harden after what happened this offseason. They're not going to give it to Russ, even if he does a Westbrookian triple-double average, because Beal's there, and we've seen it before. This is going to be a new MVP year. It's either going to be Luka. I think it'll be Dame. There are other people in there, like Booker. If Tatum reaches another level.
Thank you. God.
Yep,
I mean, come on.
There it is.
Tatum,
sure,
Tatum
totally.
over Booker.
Sure.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Dame,
for sure.
Those are,
yeah.
Those are the two guys who I as a Celtics fan, not Dr. Pete, the stethoscope is off. I am firmly staking my flag in Jason Tatum. This is Jason Tatum MVP season. Like, I think that this is the first year that he is coming into this is his team. Like, there was the Kyrie years. There was last year where it was Kemba was now like the veteran that's leading this team. That it was like, this is Jason Tatum. You are the face of the Boston Celtics. Carry this team. Go. Right. And he is had now years to develop. Like, this just feels like the culmination. This feels like all of the hype and all of the progress that we were excited about Luka last year. This feels like Tatum this year. And obviously that didn't amount to Luka winning an MVP last year, but it could, just in a weak East where you couldn't just put up numbers, like Tatum could take that. But if it's not Tatum, it is 100% Damian Lillard, and just carrying this Trailblazers and being, I think Damian Lillard has reached this point of being fucking fed up with the lack of respect that he gets on a national stage.
He's
just
pissed.
Furious, and rightfully so. The guy is a top five,
and he has ice cold, put away games and last second shots already in the playoffs.
Yes.
Like, we've seen him put teams to bed.
Liquid nitrogen pumping through his veins.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't sweat sometimes, which is fucking crazy. Everybody loves CJ McCollum. Fucking Rocco is there now. Melo's still there. Their front court, which is totally underrated, is back and healthy, hopefully.
Yes, that's huge.
And they finally have some wings that maybe aren't total Mario Hezonja trash. So this is a team that looks better on paper than it has in a couple of years. And everything's sort of laid out for Dame to go crazy and grab MVP. I sort of feel the same way about Jimmy in the East. Like, if he just decided, fuck it, we're getting the number 1 seed, I'm going to remind people who the fuck I am, the guy that went to the finals last year. Like, you can see that but he's not exactly the type of player that would do that.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. His thing would be entirely built around carrying the Heat to the number 1 seed. Like, Jimmy's not going to put up the offensive, or even like, he's not going to put up the numbers that statistically I would feel like be like MVP numbers. I think it would be more about the narrative, and that the fact that, like, he and the Heat won the East and took took down the
in
Bucks,
a conference with Giannis and with Tatum,
and Kevin Durant
and Simmons and Durant. Right. Yeah, totally.
Right. That is his narrative. I think Dame is like, if the Trailblazers finish like a fourth or above seed in the West, and Dame is averaging like 30 a game, like, that's MVP lock and loaded in my book.
I mean, I have them as 2. I think if
You have them as the 2 seed?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love you so much, Natty. Yes. Okay, incredible. Good.
I just, like, it's hard. The Lakers got better. Like, you just can't argue with that.
Yes.
And even though it might be a little bit boring, like, they have they just have dudes there for the regular season, and AD and LeBron will just take back over in the postseason, and they'll probably have made another trade. Like, Kuzma's extension is eminently tradable.
Yep.
There's just no reason to believe that the Lakers will be worse in record. Yes. So it's like, I'm so skeptical of them not being in the top seed. But if they were not the number 1 seed, then it means that one of the other teams just got fucking so good that they were able to overcome the LeBron team, which doesn't generally happen unless he's hurt. So that team, to me, is the team that got that had the best offseason, and I think that's Portland. And I love it. They're just so much fun to watch too, and it's like Dame has the resume, and like, these things sort of emerge when you're not a player like LeBron, who you're like, okay, well, technically he should be MVP every year. A player like Luka, who had the best season of a 21-year-old ever last season, which is really saying a lot. But just like we thought with Giannis, like, Luka will get his MVPs. So
they're coming. Don't worry, Luka.
So unless Dallas is a number 1 or 2 seed, I don't think that he'll be a real MVP contender. Like, people will talk about him all year, but he'll end up not getting it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we still have a lot to talk about in the West. we're jumping all over the place. Give me your 6 and 5 seed.
Okay. 6 is. So wait, I did Suns.
Suns at 8 and Mavs at 7, right?
Right. Okay. Then Then it's Rockets and then Jazz.
Okay. Yep. Sure. Stupid, boring, predictable.
Right. And it's Rockets because of Harden, and it's Jazz
Yep.
because of system and Boyan coming back and them having one of the best defensive centers in the NBA. And I feel like they'll be better because Boyan's coming back, but I don't think that they like made off-season moves to improve the Jazz that much. And they're like the Spurs, they play incredibly hyper efficient, competent basketball, and they'll be there in the playoffs no matter what. Houston with Harden is going to be in the playoffs. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. You can argue that the team overall is in a better position now because they don't have to play like tit for tat. Here's the other fucking all NBA guy, so Harden can share it. Like, it's his team.
Mm-hmm.
If John Wall and Boogie are healthy and good, that'll be great. If Christian Wood is good, that'll be like, you can see this team being a top 4 seed just because everyone performs better than we expected and is healthier than we expected. Eric Gordon is now back and healthy. PJ Tucker is playing for a contract. Like, there's a bunch of reasons why Houston will be good. Even if they traded Harden, I still feel like that if everybody else was healthy and solid, I still feel like that would be a pretty hard out.
Yeah.
So,
especially since I don't think that you're going to get a deal for Harden that is like cap filler and picks. You know what I mean? Like, you're still going to get players back who are going to start for you and give you solid production. And so maybe you drop to 8 in the West, but like, I'm super high for most improved. I was debating between Christian Wood and who I ultimately went with. So like, I think Christian Wood's going to have a great year this year, given what we saw last year.
Totally, knock wood. But the thing is, he's a late bloomer, so it's okay to not distrust, but like show me for a season. Like, that's absolutely fair. They have a new coach. They have new players. I mean, outside of Gordon, Harden, and PJ, it's like all these new dudes. So there's going to be a lot of mixing and matching, but Harden is Harden. He will get you to 50 wins in a regular season. He will get you to the playoffs in a regular season. This is going to be a strange season. Who knows if he'll be there the whole time? If he is, I have no doubt that they will be a playoff team. He's just too good. It's like you said with KD, like, you're too good. You'll be there.
I fully agree. Okay. What are we at now? 4 3 seeds.
So, okay. Then it's Jazz, then Nuggets, Clippers, Blazers, Lakers. I'll just give my
Nuggets,
my
Clippers, Blazers, Lakers. Yep. Okay. I like that. I like it. I have nothing. I mean, I obviously love the Blazers.
Like, the Nuggets didn't really get better.
No.
The Clippers, that team sort of strikes me as Indiana did to you in the East. Like, I'm just not sure that it's a real cohesive team. I think their bench doesn't make any sense at all. Like Reggie Jackson and like Lou Williams can't play in the playoffs, and Zubats has a role. Yes, no, they gave all that money to Morris. Like, the whole thing doesn't really feel like it changed outside of now Ty Lue is in charge. But the talent is still there. So if PG-13 and Kawhi are healthy, then I don't see how they could really fall that far.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think I am in love with the Blazers at the 2 seed. That would bring me so much joy.
Where'd you have them?
I had them at the highest as the 5 seed. And so I think I had a whole mess of things that I was kind of constantly tweaking around. I think where I would say is Mavs 8, Rockets 7, Suns 6, Jazz 5, Nuggets, I guess Blazers 4, Nuggets 3, Clippers 2, Lakers 1. Sure. That being said, I do feel like the Clippers might not. I don't know if the Clippers are locked to be the 2 seed in the West again. I'm not super confident in that. So maybe the Nuggets take it, or our beloved Blazers.
I mean, I don't feel like the Clippers care about seeding. I feel like they care about not getting smacked in the face by Denver again. So they're
Yes.
going to do like everything in their power to make sure that the team is ready for that kind of challenge in the
Totally.
postseason. And so that means, maybe you drop a few games while you're trying out some lineups or, resting people or after a trade.
Yep.
But it's interesting that you and I both basically have the same top 8.
Yeah. It makes sense. It's hard to argue against those teams. Like,
Yeah, which one of those teams drops out if like Memphis or Sacramento or New Orleans?
I think the Mavericks would be my go-to.
Sure.
Just because I feel like that is the team of those, and maybe the Rockets. Those are the teams that I feel like of the West that are in those playoffs where the most weight of the team is placed on one person's shoulders. Whereas like the Suns now, you've got Booker, you've got Paul, and you're hoping that DeAndre Ayton steps up as a viable third kind of player. The Jazz, you've got Don Mitch, Gobert, Bogdan. Like that team's ready to go. Nuggets, Jokic, and Murray, and then Michael Porter Jr., and then Clippers and Blazers and Lakers. We've talked plenty about.
I do think that there's a chance that Denver is out because there's sort of a history of teams going to conference finals and losing.
Yeah.
And it's you take your shot the following year and then you come back stronger. And they remember how furiously these motherfuckers had to play to advance and how many games they played and how many minutes they played. And it was, and now 5 minutes later, we're starting a new season again. So it's almost like Jamal Murray, after that game being told that he had to play in 2 days. And he's like, wait, we're playing Tuesday? And it's just like, this is too soon, man. Right. You could, especially because they didn't get demonstrably better. I could see them taking not a step back, but they're just not as good as a stacked West. And so they maybe fall out. Yeah, but it would be by a hair.
Right. And what we said with the East still rings true, obviously. I mean, this is true across the board where it's like with 72 games, these playoffs, like the top, the West, all 8 seeds could be figured out by, 4 or 5 games. But there's going to be I think there's going to be so many close records that it's going to be like, yes, maybe the Nuggets still win 40 plus games. But that now in the West, that is an 8th seed or that possibly even knocks you out.
Right. Here's the thing. Every time a team in the West plays the Thunder, they have to win. So those are pressure-packed games because it's like you cannot afford to lose to the universally acknowledged weakest team in your conference in a year like this. Right. Even if you don't care about seeding, you just have to win that game. It's just like the Spurs always do, they know which games they need to win in order to be in the hunt. You cannot lose to the Thunder, but we know that some of these teams will. So, and the Thunder might be better than we think. Like if SGA takes a leap.
They were last year.
Right, totally. So it's going to be a weird reverse target on the Thunder's back. I don't think that teams will rest versus them. I think they'll actually try to play their full complement because they need to win. Whereas if you lose to the Clippers, well, who cares? If you lose to the Lakers, who cares?
Yeah. All right. Before we go, let's rattle through our end of season awards. MVP, I feel like we've talked about. Obviously, I'm staking my flag in Tatum territory. Are you're going with Dame as your pick, or are you
sure
going
am.
to? Good.
It's boy. The Maestro's year.
Well done. Rookie of the year. I think it's Lonzo Ball without not Lonzo, LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo. Yeah.
Without a doubt, just because he's the only rookie who's going to get the amount of time and minutes in order to do it. Plus, it's narrative driven. He's going to make flashy plays. That's going to ring off in people's minds. He's got it locked in my book.
I agree with you. The only thing I would say back is that Anthony Edwards has a chance to shine in Minnesota if he's demonstrably better than DAR. And if Wiseman's actually good in Golden State, he's going to get so much pub. He's just
super true.
Who knows how much they'll play him. So there is competition, but I agree. It's probably LaMelo's.
Most improved. You said you had Ja. I got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I was debating between Shea and who did I say earlier? I said someone earlier, but now I forgot.
Blake.
Blake, yes, Blake most improved.
Yep.
So I think, and this plays into the fact that I'm just like super effing hyped about Shea in fantasy as well. But I think that Shea taking over this offense, it could completely backfire because of the fact that he has been really good when the offense hasn't been solely his, when he was playing alongside Chris Paul. But I trust the guy to be able to take the mantle and really thrive with it.
Agree.
Beautiful.
I have
Defensive
Embiid
player of the
for
year.
defensive.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going
I got
with
Anthony
Joel.
Davis.
Sure.
I got it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hard to argue with those.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be a wing, like, yeah, but yeah, we'll see. Who do you have in the finals?
The finals. All right. Not Dr. Pete. I mean, God damn it.
Say what you feel, dude. Say what you
have
feel.
In the finals? Who do you have in the finals?
I have Lakers versus Raptors.
Lakers, Raptors. Okay.
And that's because I think that the Raptors will probably make a trade this year to go with a transcendent OG Anunoby, a continuously improving Pascal Siakam, and their fearsome backcourt. They just know how to win. They have a great coach. They're a player away from being super dangerous again. I don't know who that player is right now, but I think it'll happen.
It's Blake Griffin.
Like, there's something to be said for them focusing on the front court when their additions in the front court last year were pretty good, and the year before that. So,
okay. I'm going Lakers Celtics. I can't not. I think that the biggest key for the Celtics, and I think that this is going to come from the start of this season, is they are going to figure out, and like the team's going to figure out what Kemba is to them. And I think that's the key. Is Kemba your starting point guard who is your like second offensive option, or is he, a starting point guard, but he's your fourth offensive option? If that, I think they just need to figure out where he is, and that will come at the beginning of the season. If they figure it out and everything gels, I think this team is the favorite in the East. If it doesn't gel, which it certainly cannot, then I'm going to go Bucks because I really like Drew Holiday. I really like that Drew Holiday addition. I think he brings a lot to that offense and obviously defense, and I just think that's going to be tough to score on the Bucks this year.
I don't have the Bucks in the finals because I do not trust Mike Budenholzer in the playoffs.
Super fair. He hopefully last year taught him a life lesson, but you never know.
I mean, how could you not have learned it already? It's like, you should play Giannis in the playoffs as much as you can.
Giannis should play 40 minutes a game in the playoffs.
But you're totally right. The addition of Drew, like, now that's another two-way player. And we don't need to worry about Brogdon. Like, Drew Holiday is a for real fucking NBA player. He and Giannis are going to be great together. Boring Chris Middleton is still there. Brolo, the whole thing, you can see it working at a more, like, it's the same engine overall, but they got more juice. It's just revving now.
I mean, you took a 60-win team last year, and you replaced Eric Bledsoe with Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
Pretty good. That's pretty good in my book.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, there you go. Those are our feelings on the 2021 NBA season starting tonight. Very exciting. Let us know your feelings. Tweet them at us at the Long Two Podcast. Make sure you follow. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Fake Teams Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. That's how you'll not only get us, but also our fantasy baseball and the small remnants of our fantasy football podcast, since the fantasy football season is basically over. But yeah, enjoy basketball, Natty. I am uber hyped that it is back. Also, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and talk to you next week.
Have a very Merry Christmas, everybody. Be safe. We're getting close to the end, so just hunker down, be strong, and have a wonderful holiday.